How do I choose friends? I was friends with people pleasers, and it made sense because I was a massive people pleaser. We're all adults. I'm not gonna guess how you're feeling. That girl, bye, you're in different tax brackets. Hello, shame is out for this year. Okay, get with the program. 6, so this should be the year that I'm making new friends. Oh my god! It's possible! Like, I love that. I haven't met people like me yet, but like, you and me, you know, we're here, girl, we're here. Okay, girl, we had our little sadness. Ooh. We had our little sadness chat about outgrowing friendships. Now we need to talk about, you're gonna outgrow friendships, okay? And what about when you move on? For me personally, I was in this pattern of attracting one-sided relationships because I had mistaken overgiving for connection, and that resulted in resentment on my part because I didn't know how to value my own needs. And so I kept making friends and having friendships that were purely one-sided. And now we talked about that. We had our sad little chat about that earlier in the week. And now I was like, okay, well, we need to do something because we're not going to not have friends forever, right? Like, this is a very, I think, normal part as you go through transitions. I just happen to be in my 20s, and this is what I'm going through, a huge transition in my life where I am consciously making choices to feel empowered and to value myself and to remember that I am inherently worthy as a human being and that my worth is not reliant on my production value. So I'm not a machine in that regard. I'm a human. You're a human. We're all fucking human and we're alive. Okay. So I journal. I was like, if I have already removed all the one-sided relationships from my life, aka walked away from all the friendships that I had, and I don't have any friends right now, what about when I meet new friends? How am I going to, because I was so kind of like gung-ho in that last video of like, I'm not going to be attracting these one-sided relationships anymore. I'm not going to be having these friendships where they only last for like a couple of years and then they fizzle out. Like, I'm done doing that. That's in my last book of my life. We're moving on to a new book. So I sat down this morning and I journaled and I said, let's come up with like a friendship compass. How am I going to know when I start meeting new people if they're the right fit for me? And here's the thing too, when I reflect back on all my friendships, they were great people. They were good people at their hearts. They just weren't a good fit for me. Oh, that distinction, everything. So I jotted down some things that I was like, I was sitting at my dining table this morning. I'm like, well, I do want to make friends. And when I make new friends, how will I know? Scribed it all out. And I said, let me take my ass on the couch and film a YouTube video and let them know, because I don't want to leave you off on some sad note. There's a time and a place to be sad when you've outgrown your friendships and to feel the grief and let the sorrow and the emotions come out of your heart so that you can close that door and move on into the next. So I thought that friendships meant being there for people no matter what, but inside it just started to breed resentment for me because I was showing up for the people that were not a good fit for me. So now we have a new question. How do I choose friends? Right, I was never taught this, so I'm learning it on my own, and now I get to share. These are just 3 things that I came up with, 4-ish. A handful of things that I came up with. I was like, okay, so how am I going to choose friends moving forward? The first one that came to mind for me was authentic expression. Reflecting back on my previous relationships, authentic expression is going to be one of my top priorities in friendships that I choose to invest in and have. Because in previous relationships that I had, they were people pleasers. I was friends with people pleasers, and it made sense because I was a massive people pleaser. You attract what you are, and everyone is like a mirror. So people were mirroring back to my people pleasing tendencies, and those relationships, there was a lot of hidden feelings. There was discomfort. There was like sugarcoating the truth when it did need to come out and avoiding hard conversations. And so that signaled to me, that like hiding performance aspect signaled to my body emotional instability. It always had me guessing whether or not like, well, are my friends mad at me, or are my friends don't agree with what I say with, or are they happy of like the choice that I, picked for what we're going to do for this activity when we hang out? Bitch, I don't want to guess what my friends are thinking. The amount of energy and turmoil that comes into picking up and foretelling other people's emotions. I'm not your mother. You're not a toddler. I'm 26 years old. I'm going to be making friends with other people in their 20s, maybe 30s. You're an adult. We're all adults. I'm not going to guess how you're feeling. That is in my first book of my life, and now we're in the second book of my life. So authentic expression, a friend that can tell the truth clearly and still be kind with it. And they feel safe enough to say when they're upset, when they're confused, when they disagree with something that I say without shutting down or exploding. Emotional honesty to me signals safety, and that is very important for me to thrive and enjoy and invest in relationships, especially intimate relationships such as friendships. I mean, I really feel like I'm the type of person where all my relationships are really deep and intimate. Hello, that Venus in ruled by Scorpio. If you have that in your birth chart and you feel like you're a really intense, deep, passionate person, it's just the unique human being that you are. And there are other people like you. Hi, me. I haven't met people like me yet, but like you and me, you know, we're here, girl, we're here. So that's the number one compass. I don't want to make it like a checklist, like, oh, well, if I'm going to be friends with someone, they have to be da-da-da-da-da-da. Like humans are so much more, we're much more complex than that. We're multidimensional beings. And so this isn't like a, well, someone needs to check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They need to like have all these ducks in a line for me to choose to be their friend. It's more of like a compass. Like, are you the right fit for me? You know, and I used to choose my friends based on potential and empathy, and now I'm choosing them on capacity and alignment. So this isn't a checklist. This is like a compass. Am I choosing in the direction of capacity and alignment? And the second thing that I have, and speaking of capacity, I'm looking at my little notes journal here. Matched capacity. Oh, bye goo, honey. When I choose friends, we need to be at the same, or similar, not exactly the same, but we need to be at similar levels of effort, generosity, and lifestyle bandwidth. I used to be friends with people, quite frankly, that we're just not in the same tax bracket. Like I remember sitting around one time when we were on a trip and it was like tax season. People were like, oh yeah, I'm getting back like thousands of dollars. And I'm like, you're getting back thousands of dollars? I had to pay tens of thousands of dollars in taxes this year. And they were like, oh no, like we think you filed your taxes wrong. And then I went home and I like double checked with my accountants. I texted everything and I was like, I wonder why my friends or this group of people that I'm, traveling with, why they're getting thousands of dollars back and I'm paying tens of thousands of dollars every year. Girl, bye, you're in different tax brackets. You are in such different worlds. Okay, honey? Such different worlds. And there is just a component of compatibility within relationships that lies within practical reality. If I am able to always, I don't want to always pay for dinner too, but that's the relationships that I was in. I was constantly paying for dinner. I was constantly like buying gifts and just buying things for my friends. And I wasn't keeping a tally of like, well, I'm buying this, so you need to buy the next one. That's just who I am. That's just my nature. I think it's also very inherent in like Asian culture to just, oh, if we go out, I'll grab the check this time, you grab the check next time. I'm not splitting the bill and Venmoing you $7.12. I don't send money back and forth with my friends. That's just, I'm not in that tax bracket. I don't need to send money back and forth. I can just pay for you when we go out. And the next time we go out, if I remember that I paid last time, okay, then you offer to take up the check this time. And it's just this like reciprocal nature. So there's this matched capacity. And I kept making excuses for the relationships that I was in and saying like, oh, well, they don't have the same socioeconomic status that I have, and they don't have the same resources that I have. And all of that slowly breeds a one-sided relationship, because if you are genuinely just at different capacities in life, it's going to breed an imbalance. And this isn't about judging someone else's worth, but it's recognizing differences in emotional availability, resources, and just like the life pace. I live a very slow paced life. Like I get up in the morning, I do my 20-minute outdoor walk, I sit down and have like a 30-minute breakfast, and I journal, and I do some work throughout the day, but my work isn't like all encompassing throughout my day. My work is maybe like 3 or 4 hours. So I just genuinely live a different pace of life than the people that I was in one-sided relationships with. And I think and then that also started to breed resentment because I'm like, oh, well, I can't call my friend during the day because they work a 9 to 5. Or, I can't go out to this Michelin star restaurant with my friend because they can't afford it. And like, I'm happy to take my friends out here and there to, Michelin star restaurants or whatever, but I wouldn't want to take someone out to some grand, nice, fancy restaurant if they could never put that in return. Because I also wouldn't want the other person to feel like, well, damn, I can't offer you things in exchange. So for me and my friend compass moving forward is going to be matched capacities. This is a question to me. This is a question to keep in mind. Do they invest in me the way I naturally invest in others? There is no shame. Shame is out for this year. Okay, get with the program. There is no shame in having privileges and having access to resources. It is a gift. It is an honor. My soul, my human nature, this is just what I have. And so if this is what I have, let me treat it with some respect. Let me really value my own worth. If I can if I can pay for other people's vacations, if I can pay to take other people out on fancy restaurants, let me step back and say, well, am I worth that? Am I worth being taken out on vacations? Am I worth, being paid and taken out on like nice fancy dinners? If I so naturally spoil other people with gifts, am I worth that? Bitch, yes! Now I am here. So this has got to be my compass and when I forge new friendships. And then the third one that I was thinking of too was, I titled this one, My Depth and Joy Are My Anchor. So what is like most important for me in relationships? I want to feel joy, but I also want to feel the depth. I want to feel inspired and that friendships expand my world, but they feel light at that same time. It's this beautiful juxtaposition of like, how can we get in so deep and have the deep still feel light and bright and let there be genuine laughter in the relationship. That is my favorite fucking thing. Laughing, making other people laugh and laughing in relationships. We have those moments where you're like laughing with your friend and you're both on the floor and then 15 minutes later, you're still laughing and you don't even know what you were originally laughing about in the beginning, but you just can't stop laughing because you're in this laughing attack. Like, I love that. I crave that. I have such a yearning for that. So depth and joy being anchors in my friendships, and that we both inspire each other to try new things, to grow, to think differently. And it can't just be so one-sided. I think in my relationships in the past, I felt like a therapist, or I felt like I was the only one that had the emotional capacity or depth to inspire people to think other ways. And in my last video, I literally complained. I was like, well, when is it gonna be me? Like, why do all my friends say that I inspire them? Like, when is it gonna be me that I get inspired? Because bitch, you need to make the choice. You need to make the choice to choose people that do that for you. So use the spinal fluid in your back and stand up, have it connect to your brain and the rest of your body, and start choosing people that can reciprocate and uplift you and inspire you. And when I was in certain relationships where I was like, I feel like I'm always learning new things. I'm super open-minded. I'm eager to learn. I'm intelligent. Not in the traditional like school sense. Funny enough, I never like went to the library. I never studied, but I still graduated with like all A's and B's. Cause when I just hear someone talk, I'm like a sponge. I absorb things really well. So I always love to learn new things. And in my past one-sided friendships, I always felt like, oh my gosh, I'm learning this, and this, and I'm taking this class and this, and this. And so like, I'll just tell you everything that I'm learning. And I made the excuse, or I just was naive and young and didn't understand that, girl, you have the resources. Sure, that's one thing. Anybody can have, resources to an extent to go out and learn things, but it's the drive, it's the ambition, and it's the curiosity. It's the way my mind works that I attract these new opportunities. And when I felt like I was kind of like attracting all these new information and data and life and lessons, and I would tell my friends, it almost felt like I then became like a coach, or I felt like a therapist, or I felt like a parent. And it's because I was in relationships with people that don't have minds that work the same way. And that is just not going to work for me, because then it breeds a one-sided relationship. And I'm done. I'm done with the one-sided relationships, because guess what? There can be people and there can be relationships where I am uplifted, where I am inspired. And honestly, shout out to Florence Given. If you don't know who that is, she is a UK-based author. Now she lives in LA, but she's got a little podcast on YouTube. Check her out. She has inspired me so much and helped me feel seen and heard. My Lady Bible is her book, Women Living Deliciously. I cried and I laughed so hard at that book, because it put my experience as a woman who was powerless, finding her power and now standing in my power. She puts words to my experience that I haven't even begun to put words to my own experience yet, because I'm just, going through the motions and getting there. And in one of her podcast episodes, she talks about how she hasn't had friends, or she went through a 2-year period where she didn't have any friends. And it's because she felt like she was always the therapist in her relationships. And she was like, I need to take radical responsibility for my life. Like, I can't blame other people that I keep running into. If I keep having the same issue and I keep blaming other people, it's just such a drainage and exhaustion of my own energy. I need to take radical responsibility for my life and be like, okay, so why am I choosing these people? Why am I subconsciously attracting these like broken people that are looking to me for transformation? And when she said that she went through a 2-year period without having friends, and now she has friends that are uplifting, and she's never had relationships that have been uplifting and inspiring, I was like, oh my God, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, I'm kind of praying that I don't go through 2 years of like having no friends. I feel like I've gone the past 2 years basically having no friends. So I think I'm time. My time is due. I've clocked in my 2 years from 2024 to 2026. So this should be the year that I'm making new friends. And this is my friendship compass. And when I was done journaling that, I was like, okay, well, my 2 years are up. So I'm going to start making new friends. And then I went, wait, what would it actually feel like to make a new friend? Like, how am I going to know what's going to be that like fallback system, the filter that I can rely on that goes, okay, this is a person that I can move forward with and, hang out with again. And for me, I journaled about this. The first sign that I'll be looking towards when engaging in potential new friendships is physical. It's going to be my body before it's going to be my mind, because hello, check in with yourself. Your shoulders and below, much more real estate than your shoulders and above, right? Like the space here versus the 5 feet I got under me. Yeah. So I'm going to be checking in with where I've got more real estate, and that's my body. And so when my initial core filter when I hang out with someone is going to be and meet a new friend. It's kind of nervy, a little bit uncomfortable, and also a lot exciting, but that I feel present. That I can feel the borders of my own body, that I am not feeling like I'm performing or overthinking or trying to even like manage the interaction. I feel light, expansive, and connected instead of hyper aware and tense. And that my nervous system relaxes instead of scanning for potential threats. And so this is my core filter. Before my logic gets involved, before my brain goes into like, well, are they authentic? And can they match my capacity? And would this relationship be anchored in depth and joy? Because I think those are things that become uncovered the more you engage with someone. But my initial core filter in hanging out with someone and probably leaving our first interactions is, how safe do I feel in my own body? How light and expansive do I feel? Or do I feel like I need to be tense and I'm hyper aware? Because guess what, girl? Your body has wisdom. Your body has just as much wisdom as your brain does, and your mind and your logic. And me, I was never taught that. I was never taught to listen to my body. I think most of us live in a world where it's like, well, use your mind, use your logic, constantly overthinking. Why do bitches have so much anxiety and depression? Because we're not taught to tune into the signs of their body, so we're so overworked up here that you're forgetting to use the rest of the capabilities that your wholeness has. So that is some of the stuff that I journaled and worked on today. Can you feel? I feel like the energy is a little bit more up. And I almost thought about for a second, I was like, oh, I was like, that little sad girl talk about outgrowing relationships. Like my energy was obviously lower. I was in a heavier state and processing some grief. I don't know, I feel like as expressive as I am today in this state. And so I almost thought, I was like, well, maybe I just won't post that video, and then I'll just post this video about like how I'm making friends. But I'm like, no, that takes away. I'm like, if I don't want to be performative and I want to be authentic, then being authentic is holding space and having the capacity for the diaspora of a human being and the complex energies and emotions and different parts of our personality that comes out when we're going through things. So I still didn't get it. I did. If you haven't seen, I posted a video earlier this week about what it's like to outgrow friendships and navigating transitions in friendships in your 20s. And I was a little bit more boo-hoo, sad girl, cry-y. I didn't actually cry in that video. I save my tears for off camera most of the time. And I was like, I gotta show that part so that I can also show this part. And one part isn't better or worse than the other. They're just different parts of myself, and I can see them all so beautifully. So these will be my initial filters and parameters on how I go about choosing my friends. If any of this related to you, feel free to let me know in the comments. Bitch, I'll be checking occasionally, so I'll be looking for you. But y'all seem to be some silent ass fans out there, but that's okay, because I know when I find my girls, they'll type their shit and we'll connect. And until then, I hope you gained something from this video about, if anything, you get to choose your friends. You have so many choices. Dude, did you know that you make around 30,000 choices every single day? Many of them are subconscious from the way that my arms are moving right now. That's a choice. My body's like subconsciously making a choice. My brain and my body subconsciously making a choice to move this arm in front of this arm. You make 30,000 choices a day. From the minute you wake up and you decide to roll over, that's a choice. Getting out of bed, that's a choice. Putting one foot in front of the other, these are all subconscious choices. And then you have conscious choices. What am I going to eat? What am I going to consume? Who am I going to talk to? You have so many choices that you get to make throughout the day, and that you do make throughout the day. And friendships is a choice. You get to choose who you want to be friends with, and you get to choose who you don't want to be friends with. And I hope from my last video you take away that there is no shame in choosing not to be friends with someone anymore. Like I said, I chose not to be friends with a lot of people that I used to be friends with, and it wasn't because they weren't good people. I think they are genuinely amazing people, good people at their heart, but they were not a good fit for me. And holding that feels like wisdom. It feels like growing up. And I think this is what they call becoming mature. So let's be mature. Let's consciously, as much as we can, be conscious about the choices that we make, and remove shame from choices that we made in the past that may no longer serve us in the present moment, because we've grown. And that's okay, because that's life. Da-da-na-na-na. How does that song go? It's an older one. It's like, that's life. I can't think of it exactly, but if you know, you know. Okay, see you in the next one. Friends. I choose you to be my friend.